We Are Ready podcast. We have a really cool panel today. We have John Ennis, the founder of NeoSwap. We have Prism, the co-founder of CounterfeitCulture, and a great friend of the show, Styled Pigeon, is on to offer his insight and commentary as well. All of this is made possible by Flagship. Flagship sponsors this show. I am the Stacks captain for the Flagship Outpost. Um, Flagship, this I'll tell you, oh, Flagship does this, Flagship does that, and today I'm going to tell you what Flagship actually does. I'm going to encourage you to go to the Stacks Outpost and go check out the articles that have been written there the past couple months, and then go look at crypto Twitter and see what people are talking about right now. Flagship keeps you ahead of the curve. Just that's the bottom line. And go to the Flagship Discord, do the same thing. It's really cool having a resource like Flagship that can guide crypto curious people and newbies and casual investors and help them make investment decisions. And that's just one part of what Flagship does. Flagship is also a decentralized crypto project being built. Very solid team, very good team. Go check out the account. We're going to have the Flagship guys on here for a show here soon. I'm looking forward to that. Just kind of go in depth with what this is. It's a very exciting project, very cool for the space, and they themselves are ahead of the curve with what they're doing here, and I'm proud to be a part of that team. With that in mind, let's go ahead and get started.
Looks like we might have a frozen camera.
Yeah, man, I might just wind up having to turn my camera off here if this keeps up. I've got this. I don't know what's going on today. Let's see. Where's all right, Styled Prism. John's coming in. He's going to be here shortly. This is a great opportunity to introduce yourself, Prism, and what you're doing and what you've been working on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, thanks for inviting me here. I really appreciate spending some time with you guys. But yeah, we've just going back a little bit. I've been in the Stacks community just as a community member and involved in a bunch of projects for the past few years. And recently, with the Ordinals rise up, myself and Boozy, who's also from the Stacks ecosystem, thought it would be a great opportunity to start bringing really great art to Bitcoin. And so what we've done is we've founded CounterfeitCulture, and the goal here is to bring great art to Bitcoin. So we've been working with artists across different blockchains and helping them adapt their work to the constraints of ordinals. So far we've worked with some super rare artists. We're working on something really cool right now with 22 different artists, and you can see it right there. That those are some early sub 1 million collections that we've put on from Boozy and Solemn and a few other artists, including Cover, who was those two pieces right there, the 444614 and 444612. Those are both on display at Bitcoin Miami this year. So
yeah,
we've done some cool stuff so far, and we're really excited about what we're doing right now and where we're going.
This is so cool, man, because being someone who's been in the stack system for a while too, what I see with CounterfeitCulture, with Cover, with you, with Boozy, I see people who have not just grown and got to see these people who come up from the community and do really cool things. Boozy's also happens to be one of my favorite NFT artists. so it's so cool seeing what you're doing. You know, I dig it. I dig like this is number one. You know, I dig Good Kitty and how she's kind of curating this art culture that already kind of existed on Stacks. Oh, John's here. Awesome. Hey John, good morning.
Hey, how you doing? Are we live
We
right
are,
now?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're live. All of this really cool art culture, and then you know already growing on Stacks, and then bam, here comes Ordinals, and it's just awesome. Already having this infrastructure, these teams, these ideals, everything in place to just kind of be ready for Ordinals, and yeah, it's so cool to see this happen. And didn't y'all just release a BRC20? Is that correct?
We did. But going back to what you were just saying, yeah, we had the conviction in Bitcoin, and right, like this isn't going to happen everywhere else, and not on Bitcoin, right? So we
Right.
come to Stacks, and we're in a really good position to start something like this really early. And Boozy has always been really passionate about helping artists any way he can. And
Yeah.
so this kind of joined the two things that we love about the NFT space, helping artists and just doing unique things outside of the traditional PFPs and those sorts of things. So yeah, we've got some really cool stuff going on. I'm sorry, I completely blanked on your second question there.
No, it's cool. We'll get back to it. John, thanks for coming, man. Speaking of how cool it is to see things grow from the Stacks community, you know, watching what you guys have done at NeoSwap is absolutely mind blowing. Now, for people who haven't seen this or don't quite understand NeoSwap, this is the first time they're hearing of it. Explain NeoSwap to the crypto community, someone who understands NFTs, they understand digital art, but they don't understand NeoSwap. What do you say?
Well, I mean, the big picture of NeoSwap is that there's this new type of commerce that Web3 makes possible, really the combination of AI and Web3. And the basic idea is that when you think about value, you know, we're used to thinking about the market price. Like people say, what's the price of something, right? And that's usually taken to be the market price. But the kind of big idea is that for illiquid assets, that idea of a market price is really a centralized concept, and it's not capturing the way things really are. That actually different items have different values to different people. Now, if you have highly liquid items, they do tend to converge on a market price. You're talking about Bitcoin. Bitcoin has a pretty clear price.
Right.
But when you're talking about NFTs or ordinals, to a large extent, those items are worth different amounts to different people. And people have all sorts of items that they don't value as much as other people. So we think back, you know, to the history of commerce, right? You started off with barter. Now, barter is really inefficient because barter, you've got all sorts of problems getting the values to match up. You also have a trade finding problem. You have the creation of money, which helps solve that coincidence of wants problem. But then money relies on liquidity and really the centralized mechanism where things have to get sold so you can get money so you can buy things, or you have to do work, you have to get a loan. And what we're saying is that now finally we can get back to a type of commerce that's really fully distributed, where if you can estimate, or you can ask people to in our events, but if you have an idea, a good idea of how much items are worth to different people, you can find multi-way trades that are good for everybody. So you're kind of combining the best of barter and money in this new type of commerce, this hybrid form of commerce. So that's what happens under the hood at NeoSwap. And we are starting with, when you're talking about like which chains we're on, for Ordinals, we've got smart auctions. For Solana, we've got our full suite of tools. For Stacks, we have our full suite of tools. Yeah. So if you are live on Solana or Stacks, you can press that try AI trades. And what will happen is, maybe you want to do, are you logged in here? You want to log in on Stacks? That might be a good thing to do if you want to go off screen for a second, whoever's running that.
Nick, yeah, good. If you can give that a try, Nick, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, we did it live. That'll be cool. You can log into Stacks or Solana. You press the button. There's an analysis of your wallet. We look at the assets we have access to, and we'll propose a trade to you. And we're still in the very early days there. Okay, great. In terms of, you know, the machinery that we're bringing. So that's still rudimentary.
It's model. Awesome. I've gotten I check my AI trades on NeoSwap almost daily. I mean, it's just a matter of availability. If I get to sit down in front of my laptop, I'm checking. It's amazing and styled as what I'd like to ask you, and and it's great. If you ask John Ennis a question, John Ennis is going to give you an answer. So we're talking about this idea of this new type of commerce, and it's fascinating to me because the way I've always conceptualized NeoSwap after I saw what they were doing is it reminded me of eBay, right? You know, John and I are old enough to remember a world without eBay. The rest of you may not be, but like when eBay came on, it was this whole new way of doing things, and I really do think this is the Web3 version of eBay. With in that simplified sense, in terms of changing a paradigm, not the actual mechanics behind it. What say you, sir?
Well, so the thing that NeoSwap's doing incredible stuff. By the way, John, really appreciate all of your hard work in bringing this to the space and all of the like y'all ship product faster than any other organization I've seen in this space. Now,
Thanks.
I have to be careful about saying that. I actually got called out on Twitter for claiming that somebody doesn't ship quickly enough recently. So, no disrespect to all the other projects out there who are working really hard.
Also ship like maniacs, I have to say.
That's true too. Yeah,
and the Ordinals community
experts as well. I mean, there's
yeah.
so many hard workers in this community. I completely agree. But
Facts.
the way that I've been able to kind of closely watch things happen with NeoSwap, just because, you know, John's my co-host over on Gingerly. Sorry, not
right,
John
cool.
Ennis, but the other John.
Yeah.
The no H John. And so I kind of get to, you know, talk to him a little bit about like basically everything that goes public I hear about almost immediately. So watching y'all ship has been a treat. When it comes to what you're actually bringing to the space, it almost reminds me of, you know, I'm a gamer. So lately I've been playing this game called No Man's Sky, which is a space game, right? And you can just walk up to these orb looking things and trade with the universe, right? They'll always have certain things like cobalt or what have you, sodium, all this stuff, right? That are space resources. And it reminds me of that, where when I think about the progression of humanity as a whole and what it might look like if we were to distribute ourselves amongst the stars, this is the type of commerce solution that would be required. Now, obviously, you still have the space issue, right? Somebody needs to solve, how do I get product A from spot A to spot B across the galaxy? But other than that, like NeoSwap is already working out, how do we do this commerce in a hyper efficient way to where there's not a supply chain that's extensive with middlemen all the way through, which is exactly in my opinion, that's exactly the Bitcoin ethos, you know, to a large extent, is how do we make this available for everyone? How do we cut out the middlemen, make things much more efficient? And NeoSwap's doing that with commerce, from what I can tell. Maybe I'm a little bit optimistic or naive in some way, and I'm sure John could illuminate some of the major issues that are coming down the pipeline that their team's working hard to solve. But it looks like hyper efficient commerce, just like promised. So to me, it looks like promised and delivered.
Yeah. Well, the idea is going to be that everybody's kind of a digital twin, a kind of AI agent that's trading on their behalf. And the AI agent may have different permissions. There may be items, you know, so they'll be human in the loop, potentially. But I think that when you think about how would an AI like to conduct commerce, right? It's definitely going to want to use Web3. There's just no question about it. Why would an AI want somebody to drive into Citibank and sign off on their transaction? They're not going to want that. It's just, it's frankly silly to think about that. That AI is going to prefer Web 2 rails. It's not. So you're going to have cryptocurrencies, I think, being the native currencies of AIs as they come online. And you're going to have all this stuff happening. And so NeoSwap is really aspiring to be that AI layer that's in between the application layer and the blockchain layer. Really is a set of tools that can be used by humans and their AI agents to facilitate this type of commerce that doesn't involve that bottleneck of liquidity. Liquidity is a big bottleneck. We take it for granted. There's always liquidity solutions. You know, liquidity. Think about how much our commerce is based on liquidity. We're saying we finally don't need it.
Right.
That's the thing.
That's what's mind blowing. And the fact that we're having this conversation, you know, it's 2023. We're talking about AI. We're talking about digital twins. We're talking about, you know, limitless, frictionless commerce. These concepts are so fast moving and and what we talked about here a second ago in terms of being able to push product and deliver, as someone who is a retail participant in this marketplace, one of the things I really appreciated about what the builders on Bitcoin, many of whom come from stacks, were able to do is make ordinals, for instance, just almost immediately accessible to retail. This is something that a couple years ago that you might have had months before someone who just did not know how to do this could hit a couple buttons relatively mindlessly and transact ordinals on Bitcoin. And Prism, I believe that the beneficiaries of this are the artists, are the investors, are the future investors, right? I mean, this is what mass adoption actually looks like. These are agents of mass adoption, in my opinion. What do you think, sir?
Yeah, 100% agree. 100% agree. And I think the Stacks devs were in a really good position. You look back over time, and all the smart builders on Bitcoin were kind of forced elsewhere. And recently they've been pushed over to Stacks. And so it was really cool to see them jump over really quickly and build out all this tooling. And I think one thing that gets talked about a little bit less is the impact that that's making just on crypto in general. People are finding Bitcoin, they're understanding Bitcoin better, they're feeling closer to Bitcoin and what crypto was intended to be. And so the community and just ordinals in general is shaping up in a different way than what you see on other blockchains. And it's much more aligned with the vision that Satoshi had when creating Bitcoin. So it's just been really cool to see that evolve.
Yeah, 100%.
If I can just kind of underscore that, I think that
please,
what Pryzm just said is really correct. That a lot of people that are and were building on stacks were building there because they wanted to build on Bitcoin. And first off, Bitcoin culture was not even remotely supportive of that. You have this idea that Bitcoin can only be money, as if the only thing that matters for commerce is money. That's just so naive. You have to have assets to have an economy. People trading money back and forth is not an economy. It has to be goods and services. So, and you're not going to get there with, look at what happened. I'm probably getting, these are, I have to be a little careful, but you have Bitcoiners celebrating a nation state saying that Bitcoin is legal tender. That's kind of a weird thing if you really think about it. Because what you're doing is now we're willing to use the instruments of the state to force people to accept our currency rather than relying on the market to let it happen, which is really what should be what's in line with Bitcoin ethos, is that it emerges not because the state forces people to accept it, but because people want to use it, right? That it's sound as money. But that's how desperate things have gotten, that there's this idea you're going to get to hyper-Bitcoinization by buying coffees in El Salvador. That is silly. It's just not going to be how it works. In real life, you need to have economic activity. And now you have it with ordinals. And I find it to be mind-blowing that there are Bitcoin maxis out there who finally have a chance for a fully Bitcoin native economy, and they resist it. Something is wrong.
Yeah.
So it's become a religion over there. That's my.
You're right. It's ideology and style. You're my man. With you're so literate and you're so thoughtful. This is a wonderful thing to kick over to you. This idea that what John's saying is self-evident. This is so clear. And it helps to have it explained, but money, the economy is more than just money changing hands, right? You could do that with breakfast cereals. Oh, this is my token Fruit Loops. This is my token Cheerios. Here, let's trade them and see what their value is. But if they're not worth assets, they're not worth assets. And this whole ideology and identity that people get behind tribalism, which that's really what this is, how do we overcome that? And what's your just thoughts on that in general?
So I think that this is actually why I think that we're getting at why art is so prevalent in Web3 is because we seem to subconsciously understand that we have to explain the meaning behind everything prior to actually executing the logistics of a thing, right? So what happens is, Bitcoin comes around and like John's saying, everybody goes, oh, this is money. It's like, well, sort of like you can use it that way, like that's feasible, but it's more than that. So how do we explain that it's more than that, that it has to do with the culture that we're a part of, that it has to do with value and meaning somehow, that it affects all of the things throughout our lives in this seemingly supernatural way? It's like, how does Bitcoin keep taking over everything in my life? Well, it's because of that meaning and value that's at the core of the actual ethos. So people like Prism bringing on new artists to participate in the space, or even artists who have been participating in other places and spreading them across this machine that's being built, is hugely effective, because all of those art pieces are generally relevant to what we're actually trying to do.
Mm.
So to me, it's like people are kind of the problem with the whole ideology thing and tribalism. And by no means am I saying, you know, we need to end people. You know, people are also what brings a lot of the magic and a lot of the really amazing things to this equation. But right now in our society, there's this easy trapping around ideologies, and I think that has something to do with identity, which is why the Bitcoin people latched onto it so hard, is because Bitcoin can have such a major influence on your identity. Some people got captured, a lot of people got captured in that, you know, okay, now Bitcoin is my identity. Bitcoin is everything to me. I'll protect this until the day that I die. This is the hill that I'm going to die on. And it became that, you know, idolatry, or the ideology got so ingrained in them because it became part of their identity. Whereas most people, well, okay, I think that if you're psychologically doing this correctly, you're able to kind of kill that part of the ego that says, you know, if someone says something bad about Bitcoin, I'm going to like lynch them. No, if somebody says something bad about Bitcoin, I want to hear that, because I'm going to tell John or Prism or Jack or somebody like, hey, what about this thing? Like, what's going on with this thing on Bitcoin? How can we fix this? How can we bring this to a head where somebody's actually doing something about it? Because we need to continue to build this thing, whatever it is, so that we can create a future for humans that isn't tyrannical. Is actually the objective. This is what we're doing to stave off tyranny. And this is actually the story of humanity, right? Is humans cooperatively fight against nature and to keep the tyrant at bay. That's what we've been doing for all of history, is trying to strive forward together to keep those forces away from us, and so that we can be free and live our lives. And, you know, Web3 seems like, to me, one of the greatest tools that we've ever had to do that with, if we can manage not to be possessed by the demons that have haunted us in the past.
Yeah, and it's strictly ideology. That's evidenced by when Michael Saylor changed his tune on Ordinals. I mean, that started it, and you just see these prominent people. So I mean, I don't take these people seriously. You know, I enjoy content. I try to look at people, you know, as in their entirety, and not just focus on one little thing about them, because that's a really easy way you can criticize everyone and just think everything sucks if you look at life that way. So I choose not to do that, but I mean, it's basically a joke. So going on to what NeoSwap does, um, I'm officially in the month of May, ashamed to say this because of my job in the community. I've been so focused on looking at, you know, what's going on with Ordinals, what's going on with DeFi on Bitcoin, learning about BRC20s. You know, I feel like I'm a little out the loop and I have to catch up. What's the latest things going on right now with NeoSwap, John?
Yeah. Well, right now we're getting ready for our seed round. That's the main thing. And so that means that we're really working on scaling. And so a big part of that is Solana is a very good chain for us to scale on. And I would say that I actually think the future of Solana and Bitcoin together is extremely bright. I think now that you've got actual commerce happening on Bitcoin, what you're going to see is anything that requires durability is going to head over to Bitcoin. And I think that when you care more about interoperability and speed than necessarily durability, you're going to see all those use cases head over to Solana. And so what I think is you're going to see is games, virtual worlds. You're going to see a lot of more lightweight art type applications. You might have memberships, airline miles, all that stuff. You're going to see brands because of the compression on Solana. You can mint a very large number of NFTs for a very low price. You're going to see brands, cereal makers. They used to put toys in their cereal. They're going to put QR codes in the cereal, and it'll be a NFT that unlocks access to a game or something like that. So you're going to see all that stuff go to Solana, and you're going to see anything that requires durability go to Bitcoin or to Bitcoin layers. And I think when Bitcoin really fills up, that's when you're going to get activity spilling out to, say, Stacks, especially once Stacks solves the various mining problems that are plaguing it right now. What Stacks is running into right now is basically MEV, right? The miner extraction value is happening on Stacks. So that's what I see as a future, really, of Web3. Those
and you're right, and it gets back to the future is multi-chain. I mean, that's talking to you last summer. That we had a discussion about NeoSwap, and you said that, and I ruminated on it, and you're 100% correct. In terms of art culture, Prism, because this is Styled hit on this a little while ago. Culture is a huge part of what we're doing here. I personally believe that crypto culture is the actual counterculture, right? I mean, I think that's where we are, and every culture, every subculture, every counterculture is known for its art. It's known for its music. When you think about the 60s, what do you think of? You think of the music, you think of the hippies, you think of the culture, and then you start branding into these other things, right? So art's a huge part of that. So art collectives are going to be a huge part of that. So what do you think about not just the role that counterfeit plays in shaping the art, but I'd like to also know your thoughts on just crypto art in general. What are our ideals expressed through this art?
Yeah, I think art and artists being able to express themselves has really led to defining what crypto culture is. I mean, even looking at meme coins, what's been the most popular meme coin over the past 6 months? It's been Pepe. Artists are creating this culture, and then it sort of spreads out into everything else within crypto. And so the opportunity that artists have had just with NFTs in general to get their work out there in front of more people and give them more opportunity to do the things that they love, that's been huge for artists. And there's been a lot of artists that have prospered from that. Now moving over to Bitcoin and to Ordinals, they're able to put their art immutably right on chain. And to me, this is the absolute best scenario for artists. You write something on Bitcoin and it's there forever. You're etched in Bitcoin history. And so I think art will continue to play a huge role. I think so far with Ordinals, we've seen a lot of, there's been some bigger collections and communities being formed around those collections, but we haven't necessarily seen the art push just yet. So that's what we're trying to push along is bring in that culture and bring in independent artists and give them that same opportunity here on Ordinals that they've had elsewhere. It's a little bit difficult to launch your work on Ordinals. It's a little bit easier now. You have the tooling to do that. But when we first started out back in February, you were using Sparrow. You didn't have inscription services. But even now with those inscription services and the wallets, it can still be a little bit of a challenge to get your art represented the right way, the way that you want it to be represented. And so that's the role that we want to play is how great, how high quality can we get this work to look while also dealing with these constraints on Bitcoin? And that's a really, really fun challenge that a lot of artists that we speak to are really, really interested in pursuing.
Yeah. And the cool thing is that's another thing that even NeoSwap can help with. I have people in my DMs frequently who come in and are like, "Hey, how do I get a little bit of exposure?" And the first thing I do is I send them to Purple Suede. I'm like, "Hey, man, look, NeoSwap has all of these different suite of activities. They run auctions. They have events. Like that is an on ramp onto people's consciousness." And was that something that you foresaw, John? Like, that kind of because you're the high level guy, you're the mathematics guy. Was this an intended or unintended consequence of how NeoSwap operates in terms of, helping get people exposure for their creative outputs? It is commercial, but it's also almost like an on ramp onto a blockchain, on ramp onto crypto Twitter. It's pretty cool. Did you think that would be something that would come up?
Well, I was surprised by it, to be honest. At the beginning, I was just trying to work on this economic engine, and actually, the earliest versions of NeoSwap, I tried to do on Facebook Marketplace in 2017. It really didn't go anywhere. But once I got into Web3, I realized, look, we need users, and it seemed like artist communities were a good place to start. So I reached out to African Illustrations, who turned out to be Shudu, who now works for us as our analytics lead. And the very first event that we did with him, I was just really surprised by how fun it was. That we had a whole bunch of people together from his community who were interested in his art. And we had this live event, and people brought their own art, and they were, swapping going on. And I thought, this is really interesting, because this is, I think, one of the strengths of Web3 is it can bring people together. That you can have, everyone has their own assets, and so they can just show up, and you can have this impromptu market that arises. So that made me think that back in the day, the town square was the place where there was a market, and it was also the place where there were the fairs. There's always been this overlap between social and economic activity. And we were recreating that kind of accidentally in the NeoSwap events. And when you look now at our auctions, you're right. They are fun events. And I think that's one of the big differences between NeoSwap and other, I guess you can call us a marketplace. I've been resisting becoming a marketplace. I don't really want to compete.
Understandably so.
But we are really, in some sense, becoming a marketplace. It's sort of like Trump was on stage during one of the debates, and he referred to himself as a politician. And he was like, I never really thought of myself as a politician, but I guess I am one. Because he was like president of the United States. And so I guess he was a politician. So I kind of feel like that, where we're becoming, we are becoming a marketplace, except we're a live marketplace. And so when you've got these events going on, or even if there's an auction, think of the Yuga, the 12-fold auction that they had, right? It was sort of an event in the sense that people were bidding at the same time and they were talking about it, but it wasn't like a place that everybody came to and there was a thing going on, right? And I haven't seen very many examples. There may be a few examples in Web3, but I think what we're doing is really at the forefront there of having this event that happens over a fixed amount of time. People are chatting, they're talking in the event with each other. In fact, we even at times have had live audio, and you could actually talk to people in the event. I think that's kind of special and new. And I think when you see the auctions, like we work a lot with Bitcoin machines, that's been very good for us and it's been good for them. And so actually Pryzm, it'd be great to talk to you about running some events with you. That'd be something I'd be happy for us to do.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is, this is really cool because Web3 is a term that becomes this thing that you just hear everywhere and people talk about it and then you get tired of hearing it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get down to what it's supposed to be is this new way of using the internet, and part of that is commerce. And I could argue, and I have argued and will continue to argue, that NeoSwap is a concrete example of what that term is and what it actually means and what it looks like, and how it serves as a model for Web3. Now, Style, this is a philosophical type question, right? Because you have crypto and you have Web3, and crypto kind of evolved into Web3 when we're talking, in terms of not technology but just ideas. And you have the idea of crypto and crypto people, and then you have the idea of Web3 and Web3 people, and you do wind up with ideology and so forth because you just can. But I think that crypto people, to me, represent people who have high risk tolerances, who high level understand that there's something that's game changing going on. They want to be early to that because they understand this is how you change the course of your life. There's certain times in history where new things come along that the early adopters to these new things benefit greatly. I mean, the first internet boom, it just goes on and on. I mean, this is obvious. Now, for me, Web3 people, the way I conceptualize them and not so much the ones who just use it as a buzzword on LinkedIn, because I don't know why. I don't understand that culture. I don't care. But like when you have, just Web3, but this is actual Web3, and crypto and Web3 are related. In my mind, I think they're cousins, right? I think they're cousins. They share similarities, share the same foundation, share the same DNA, but it's just a little bit different. What's your thoughts on Web3, the not just the practical part and the part that's being built out, but the philosophy of Web3, crypto? Just run with it. Let's see I'd like to see where your head's at.
Well, so the thing that's so difficult in my mind, so with NeoSwap, when I look at you guys' brand and what you're building, the thing that's so interesting about it to me is that and we talked about this, Jack, last time I was on, you're actually building the road and the car at the same time, which is interesting, right? Because normally, like, you'll see, let's say Gamma, right? They're actually building the road. If nobody builds anything else, Gamma flops hard, right? If nobody's trading anything on Gamma, then why do we need Gamma? If there's no cars, why do you need a road, right? But NeoSwap somehow manages to do the road and the cars at the same time and kind of like piece them together as we're going and full speed ahead, which is exactly what we need in Web3. The problem with Web3 and crypto is that you can't really build Web3 in a vacuum, right? So when we transitioned from Web 1 to Web 2, there was a very specific problem that they were trying to solve. And from what I understand, a lot of this was pointed out by Sammy Kamkar. I don't know if y'all remember Sammy is my hero, but he accidentally put a worm on, well, he did it intentionally, but didn't think he was going to get in this much trouble. He put a worm in the code of his MySpace page and shut down MySpace. It was like overnight, there were millions of people that had Sammy as my hero on their page because of this worm. And so he got arrested, right? And so that wasn't great for him. But what it did was it pointed out this really big issue with Web 1, where it was read only. And so he goes, okay, well, how do we, now the whole culture says, okay, how do we improve this? And most people had no idea, because they can kind of they can fix that problem in a vacuum and then roll it out, and all of a sudden the internet is just different. Nobody notices. All of a sudden they're like, oh, I can actually move the map around on MapQuest instead of having to like move it and then the page reloads and then move it again, the whole page reloads again. So that was a fairly simple transition from what I understand about it. But Web3 is like this whole extra leap of we're kind of adding a whole new dimension to the internet. And so I don't necessarily agree with what you said, Jack, about crypto and Web3 and their nature in relation to each other. In my head, I go back to that road and car analogy. Web3 is kind of like the whole interstate system, and crypto is like a county road, right? So you have a token that may provide a stretch of road from here to there, but then you have to build something kind of on top of that token to make that road worthwhile having in the first place, which is why we have so many like shit coins and all that stuff that happen. Is like we're trying to build a road, but the only thing that's at the end of that road is some random dude's house. So like nobody wants to use that road, right? Why would they? So as we build this thing that we're calling Web3, there are so many different aspects that are developing simultaneously. And I think that's why things like Ordinals have a bunch of controversy around them, is because people don't, it's not immediately visible what we're trying to do. That's actually why I joined the space. So I've been in sales for a good portion of my life, and one of the things that you always focus on in sales is how do I get my messaging right. And so Purple Suede was actually talking to me at a family get together one time, and I was like, man, y'all's sales team in Web3 sucks. Like y'all need to get this together, because like I'm pretty smart for the most part, and I have no idea what you're doing. Like you can't seem to tell me what it is that you're trying to get to. And that's why we need things like, the projects that Prism's working on, where we have art that comes together and says, this is what we're doing, this is what we're about, and this is why, right? This is the reason behind it. And then people like John and NeoSwap come along and say, this is the how, right? So
Right.
we all have to work together to kind of feed off of each other's reasoning as we explain this to, mom and pop, and say, okay, here's what's the actual problem. The actual problem is centralization, right? We've always been centralized due to the limits of space and time. How do we transcend those limitations via the internet? That's why Web3. So I know that's a little bit, I was kind of meandering there, but does that actually answer your question in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, I think that when John was talking about Solana earlier, when Solana came out, when it hit the consciousness of people on, say, crypto Twitter, it did it when SBF told a reply guy, sell me all your soul at, I think it was like $3
$3,
at the
yeah, and
time.
F off.
Yeah, and F off. And that, what I mean by crypto is that's crypto, because before anyone knew what Solana was doing, before John Ennis knew that this thing that's going to be super attractive to businesses, right? Before it was that, it was crypto. Does that make sense? That's like,
Yeah.
and because that crypto money was there, because a whole bunch of people who were already in this space looking for their gold, right, looking for their oil well, said, okay, I'm gonna buy this. I'm gonna sit on it. There's liquidity. Here come the builders. Now we're building Web3. That's more
So,
along.
so I think that's a perception issue, right? Is because we're introducing a brand new paradigm that had to be communicated according to the current paradigm.
Right.
So when people see crypto, they go, oh, this is markets and trading. But crypto is actually a lot more than that if you actually dig into it and look at what the technology is capable of, right?
Yeah.
So we always talk about utility. Well, a crypto will work just fine if it has, let's say, amazing utility for transactional purposes. That's a great currency, right? Because you're stripping out the middlemen, hopefully decentralizing, and you can create a currency doing that that's more useful than fiat.
Right, USDC is way better than international wire transfers, for example.
Yeah.
That's one
right, exactly. So that's where that utility comes from. But then those of us who kind of see a little bit more of the big picture, or are maybe even just creating a little bit more of the big picture, understand that crypto is really just the underlying foundational principles of the technology that we're building on top of. Well, I say we. I'm kind of using the royal we there, I guess. You guys are doing the building. I'm just kind of watching and translating for people if I can. So as I'm trying to translate this, one of the biggest things that I always run into is that question of, okay, I want to get into crypto. How do I become rich? It's like, well, like if I knew that, I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in.
Well, there's a bunch of things going on there that I think are interesting, actually.
Illuminate me, please.
Yeah. First off, the financial system is totally broken, completely broken. It's basically entirely a scam, right? That the whole system is like, it just is.
It's true.
And it, it's so funny.
It's true. It's all a lie. I mean, it's just
the number of times I sit at my day job and go like, what am I doing here? Is like, we call it a fiat mine.
Yeah.
I'm mining fiat right now. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
You can go back, like everybody, anybody listening to this, please read or listen to The Creature from Jekyll Island, because you got to understand what's going on, and has been going on for a long time. Why is it that there's so much productivity? Productivity is through the roof, right? Globally. Right. And why is it that we all have to work harder than ever? That I'm in a situation, I'm like, I'm exhausted. I've been working for years and years, and everybody I know is working so hard, right? Well, where's the productivity? Most of it is being spirited away to Wall Street. Why are all these wars? It's because there's a lot of money to be made on these wars.
Right.
I mean, it's just sad, but it's true. And then, and it's not like this is a new thing. Wars have always been, to a large extent, driven by financiers. But there's a sense that something's deeply wrong. And all of the avenues to financial stability increasingly are being shut off for 99% of people. And so there's a kind of desperate desire that, okay, maybe I can leapfrog to generational wealth by getting lucky on crypto. So I do think I think of crypto as a subset of Web3, right? Bitcoin came along, it showed a new way. In fact, part of why I have Starry Night back there is exactly what you're talking about, Pigeon, that there's a new way, but we have to communicate it to people in the old way. And I think that was Van Gogh's genius, is that he had a new way of looking at the world. And he was able to communicate that new way in a way that could be understood by people who saw the world the old way, right? That's what a great artist does. Is an artist has like a new direction, but they're able, they don't just, not just a crazy person has their own ideas, new direction, but they can't communicate it to anybody. They're like in their own world talking to themselves. A great artist is able to take that new idea and communicate it to people in a way that's comprehensible to people who see the world the old way, right? They can guide them. Beethoven did this too, of course, that you have this guidance to a new way of looking at the world. And so Web3 is a new paradigm. And I think crypto is a subset of Web3 that's understandable to people in the current paradigm, in part because there's this kind of financial desperation. And that's why you have such an appetite
100%.
for get-rich-quick schemes. That if it was the case that somebody could graduate college, not like I did, right? I'm 46. So I'm old enough that I went to college. And when I went to Virginia Tech for my undergrad, I would work during the summer for my father as an analyst. I'd make money. I actually would make about $25,000, something like that, okay, over the course of the summer. Because I was doing, it's high value work, but I was doing it. But I wouldn't make it personally. I'd make it for his business, right? He'd make him $20,000 over the course of the summer. That allowed him to turn around. And actually, I had to pay my bills after the second year. But it was $8,000, including room and board, to go to Virginia Tech my first year. Okay? Think about that. $8,000.
Right.
With room and board and tuition.
Right.
Okay, maybe $10,000 to get into book. It's just crazy. Now it's 100. I mean, that's what it should be, though. Why is it so expensive to sit in a room and learn something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just had two graduates from high school this month. My son, he's going to a state school.
Yeah.
To study engineering. He's gotten scholarships.
Yeah.
And he's just over half covered. He's looking at $7,000 a semester.
Yeah, so 14 with scholarships. Yeah,
exactly. Right now. So you're right. I mean, that is awful. I mean, that's an almost impossible situation.
Yeah.
And it's the reality because, like you said, so much of our productivity does not go into our households or our communities.
Right.
It goes into other people's pockets because of the way that the fiat system is designed.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about this all day.
Yeah.
Like, first off, student loans, you can't bankrupt out of them, okay? It's the usual thing where I think there's a combination of good intentions by people who are naive and actually very bad intentions by people who aren't naive come together. And they come up with this, we make college accessible. Let's make it so we can get low cost loans. And the banks say, well, we're happy to give you low interest loans as long as people can't get out of them. Did you know that if you take out a student loan and you are suppose you're in dire financial straits, you're older, you still have a student loan, they will deduct the student loan payment from your Social Security money. Did you know that?
Yeah, that's insane.
It's totally crazy. But that's what they do. They'll take it even from an old person. So you've got the situation where something was sold to the public as, okay, this is going to be a way for lower income people to go to college by making the loans affordable. But what happened? Now that you can't bankrupt out of those loans are attractive to the banks. Because in some sense, they're kind of underwritten by the force of the state. And so then now banks, we're happy to give you money. I never had any debt until one day in graduate school, I found out I can take out these low interest loans. So I took out the money I lost it in the NASDAQ. And I only paid off those loans a few years ago. Right. I didn't even need the money. But if you push easy money onto young people, you're going to get bad decisions. And when you have a lot of easy money running around, then those institutions are going to be happy to do whatever they can to soak up the money. Fancy cafeterias, big gymnasiums. I remember at UCSB, there was a big push to build the new gymnasium. We didn't need it. The old one was fine. But it was a money soak. So you just have all these ways that the money is going to get absorbed. And one of the ways you see this is that administrators have gone up. The rate, when you look at the rate of faculty versus the rate of administration, 4-1.
Yeah. Healthcare is the same way. Hospital. Exactly the same thing. Yeah. Exactly administrators, healthcare. Why is healthcare so expensive? I don't know why does a hospital need all of these people who don't actually do healthcare?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. You can go to the vet. The test of this is a free market still is animal. Now they're trying to mess this up too, but animal healthcare. You bring your cat to the vet, your cat can have a serious problem. And they do scans, x-rays that are $800. If that was a person, $30,000.
Oh yeah,
Right?
100%. Same
It's
technology,
physically
same
the
cost of
same
equipment,
care, right? But it's 30 times more for the human. Why? Because the human system is broken.
right? Yeah,
Right.
it's all predicated on a social program called Medicare, and
Yeah.
that controls the
Anyway,
whole
sorry, I
flow
don't
of
know. Chris,
everything.
this is interesting too.
No.
I mean, this is something Chris and me like this conversation.
No.
No, that's. I mean, you guys nailed it. I'm right on the same page with you. If you're buying into the current system as it exists, you are going to be in a position where you are constantly punching up and trying to get out of it. Even most recently, let's look at the housing market. What has happened over the past year is you have big institutions buying all the houses and now selling them back to you at a higher rate. So
Exactly.
everything in this current system is designed to keep you where you are, and
100%.
Or even push you down. Yeah.
Right. And so crypto gives you the opportunity, and that's why people are so excited about it, and that's why they ask about, what's the next 100x, because this is the only opportunity that a lot of people have to get out of the position that they're in.
Yeah. No, it's 100% true. So real quick, we have about 10 or so minutes. Prism is just leave us some messaging about counterfeit culture, man, and let us know where to go and what to do and what to look out for.
Of course. So just a little backstory. We started with inscription 38,980. We are the first art house inscribed on Bitcoin. And again, the goal is to just bring great art to Bitcoin. It's not just here on Ordinals, but on every chain. Independent artists have always struggled to make a name for themselves in this sea of other artists. And so as we move along here, we're able to bring them into something bigger. Collectors, we really appreciate that person's art or not. Always in the back of their mind is, I'm also betting on this artist to do really well. But with the situation that we're building, we're able to bring everyone into something bigger that's backed by something, this project that is focused on this and is experimenting and trying new things. I mentioned earlier, we have released a BRC. We will continue to do things that pop up, whether they're directly art related or not, because that's the space we're in. We want to experiment and we want to bring more eyes in different ways to these artists that we have. So, so we've had some big wins lately with 3 pieces up at Bitcoin Miami. One was in NeoSwap, and that was awesome. And right now we are working on what we think is our big thing. We've got 2 different collections right now that we are really, really excited about. Things seem to be shaping up for this kind of to be our moment. So for the next couple weeks, we've learned to keep things close to the chest. There are a lot of scammers out there who have done some things with our art that we can't do anything about at this point. And so we're going to keep things tight. But over the next couple of weeks, we'll be releasing details about those 2 collections. And one thing I can say, and I'm not sure if anyone here knows Sasha Chudo. She's a big Pepe artist. She had a big collection last year called Keck Balloons. And we're working with her on our first 10K collection, which is going to turn out really cool. So, and this is a perfect situation. She can continue to focus on her art on Ethereum. We will take on the community. We will help her, get the art ready for Ordinals and help her with distribution and all of those things. And so she's able to put her art on Bitcoin while not having to learn and worry about this community that she'll be building with this new set. So yeah, we're really excited. This project is just something that's taking all the things that I love about crypto art and putting it all in one. I would say about 80% of this project is just stuff that I like, and then 20% is what I think people like. And I'm just really passionate about what we're doing. So we just keep pushing forward, organic growth. Really happy with where things are going.
That's so cool, man. Yeah,
we've gone back and forth on support for BRC20 tokens because it is actually a much bigger lift to support BRC20 than it is to, because you have a token that's built on Solana. Okay, we can support it almost out of the box.
Right.
But for BRC20, we have to build new infrastructure. And would it be interesting to you? if there was a smart auction of your art, but the payment was with your token? Is that something that you would want?
I think that would be very interesting to the holders of that token. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
100%.
Right. And it would potentially draw new people in, because in order to participate in the auction, you'd have to get the token, right? You'd need to be a holder of the token to bid. So maybe we should talk about that, because we're trying to figure out what to do, in preparation for our seed round. And one of the ideas is to add BRC20 support for the ordinal auctions. Maybe
it's a good idea, and I could see it. I could definitely see it going that way. Megapont just released a token on Ethereum called Pixel, and that's why that was one of the main reasons I invested in it, because I could kind of think, okay, this is probably a direction this is headed, and this is a good team and trusted team. So yeah, that's really cool. I think this is something cool to keep an eye on. John. Go ahead, Pryzm.
I'm sorry. If you look at the BRCs that have been out there, there's 99% of them. There's nothing behind them. They're just a token.
Yeah, it's like 2017 when I jumped in all over again. You just see it. Things evolve, new iterations of new ideas come about, and we're just at the vaporware phase of BRCs for sure.
Yeah. And so when we have a token like ours, where it's a little bit different mindset, everything else that we do should be reflected in the value of that token. But that's a learning process, right? So if we were able to work out something where we could accept this BRC as payment, we were able to hold on to more of that supply. I think that would be beneficial for everyone involved.
Okay. All right. I just put a note in Slack to Hamza and Kuba. We should really add support for BRC20 tokens for Ordinal smart auctions.
Yeah, so, this is cool. Yeah, this is what's so much fun about doing this show. This is cool, connecting people and showing people the new ideas. John, any parting words you want to leave the viewers about what's going on with NeoSwap?
Well, with NeoSwap, I would say try the platform. Come to our auctions. Hopefully we'll be one with Pryzm here soon, and we can get an auction. Right now we can do Ordinals for Bitcoin, Ordinals for Ethereum. We are probably going to start doing Ethereum smart auctions sometime soon. And then we have our whole suite of tools running on Solana and Stacks. So you can go get AI proposed trades on those chains. We also can do auctions and smart swaps, which are kind of fun multi-way trading events. Yeah,
and NeoSwap is a lot of fun. I mean, the events there. I wrote an article on it a while back. You can see it on my website. Definitely check out NeoSwap. Styled, man. Anything you want to leave with the guest here? Well, with the viewers, rather.
Big thank you. I was kind of laughing, at John and Pryzm. It's like every single time I'm on one of these shows, there ends up being like, okay, yeah, like let's follow up with that after the call. Like, let's go ahead and make this happen. And I love that culture and that go-get-itness that everyone has in this space. It's genuinely inspiring to me, and for listeners, especially if you're just thinking about getting started in crypto, start paying attention to these shows, watching what all these folks are doing, because it moves very quickly. Sometimes it's like drinking out of a fire hose, but you'll find your spot. You'll find where you belong in this community, because everybody belongs somewhere in this community. There's always stuff to be done. There's always people to talk to. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at Styled Pigeon. Reach out. Let's talk, and get everybody onboarded, because this stuff's the future. I mean, it really is going to change the world completely. I can't wait to see it continue happening and be a part of it.
Yeah, it's really cool, man. And I thank you all for being here. Like John alluded to earlier, everyone's working hard. Everyone's busy. So there's just not enough time in a day. So I very much appreciate your time today. I hope you all enjoyed watching, and I hope y'all could come back one day. This could have been a 4-hour discussion, Joe Rogan style, no sweat.
Easily.
Yeah, I could talk for 4 hours by myself on what's wrong.
Yeah, I typically do it to myself all day long, because my wife eventually.
Well, my wife doesn't want to hear it. So.
Yeah. All right,
let me
gentlemen.
say one thing, guys, about
Yeah.
this. I think it's really important is the networking, right? This is a small, even just the four of us. You think about networking and how powerful it is. I think that's why Web3 is so exciting, because it's permissionless networking. What is it? Why do you even go to Harvard or Princeton, right? Mainly, it's for the network. To an extent,
100%.
it's for the stamp of approval and now people's social, validation that you're a smart person or whatever. But really, it's for the networking, the network that you get in. Why do people go to the WEF?
Right.
They go there to network. Right?
Exactly.
They probably get sucked into the most evil ideas in the world, but
and we can do it
but they go there for
harmlessly
the network
with our crypto wallets.
Yeah.
Just all your social validation in the world. You're right there. That's why people join things like the Bored Apes. That's why people have these different things. We're replicating and improving on already existing systems. 100%.
Yeah, it's freedom to network, and commerce is a form of networking. So
100%.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank y'all so much for coming on. This was a lot of fun, and I look forward to doing this again.
Sounds great. All right,
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot, guys.
See you, fellas.